everybody to the April 9th, 2025 meeting of the Eastham Strategic Planning Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access and linked to the town website at www.eastham-ma.com. All right, first thing is opening statements. I don't think I have any special opening statements other than welcome and thank you. Does anybody else want to call?
Is this your first official meeting? Yeah, no, that's right.
No.
Because don't we have a new?
There is a, yes, but I don't know what the status of that is, the new person. Is he?
I thought he got appointed officially on Monday select board meeting, so
Okay.
he
Yeah.
probably hasn't had time to get sworn in.
Oh, that could be
okay.
it, right.
And who is that?
Ryan,
His name is on an email. Hang on.
he's got a
Ryan Cullen Trouble.
yeah.
Okay.
A complicated last name.
Okay, so he'll hopefully be here for the next meeting if he's not here. Right, maybe they'll come late.
Let's remember to
Whatever.
add him. Remember to add him into the group.
Yes, yeah. All right, I'm looking on the screen. Any comments? No? Anyone? Can you read, right? Yeah, okay, all right. So let's go to discussion and review of the latest draft strategic plan, which I'm going to turn to the slide, because you've been doing all the work on it. Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so I think I have all the boxes
You do.
filled in.
Whoa.
There hasn't really been any change. Hi, Jackie.
Sorry. Jumped the gun.
No, I told Paul I was gonna be late.
We literally just started. We haven't
Just
missed
started, you only use opening statements, did you have those?
No, I do not.
Okay, then we're on number 2 and Paul is gonna lead us.
Okay.
So the draft I sent out, nothing much has changed with the content other than, like I said, I'm just trying to fill in the boxes of the funding and the status and the time frame boxes, get those, and I think I pretty much have them all filled out with the current status. The only things that have changed really is I tried to adjust the numbering sequence. I'm not sure if it makes sense. It seemed to make sense to me. So that first column, but I'm open to suggestions. So just trying to get like the action steps numbering to kind of go. Yeah, so it's just designed to be, G1 is goal 1, SF is strategic focus, and then 1.1, and then just so.
Paul, can you screen share?
Oh, yes.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Let me bring my computer up.
It's always bigger.
So it's, yeah.
Can you see? Yep, I can. Yep, I'm fine.
It's chilly though.
It's
Just while you're doing that, I don't. It's as good as any numbering system, so if it works for you, that's the important part.
Well, I guess it's a good if it works.
Yeah. I mean,
Just because it works in my head doesn't mean it's gonna work for everyone else. So yeah, if
I mean,
it seems logical and it works, we'll go with it. But
okay,
that
I
was
get it.
the sequential numbering behind it. So
Mhm.
so I know that was a fix. Other than that, the only other change I wanted to highlight was in the town services section. I did talk with Lori Barr, our HR director, and so this was the on the language about the staff assessment. As we talk through it, I think we conduct the staff assessment and the staffing needs as part of the annual budget review, and it wasn't anticipated that we would actually be doing like a full-on separate staffing
Plan.
Plan.
Yeah.
Although
something that we-
have in the past.
Really? Over
Yeah.
5 years?
Or
We have,
annually?
Yeah, yeah. No, when I
No?
first came, so we did one I have one from 2018 with a new organizational chart that I was working towards. So that's usually the town manager would do that or initiate that if we're looking at long-term, additions. I think right now we feel kind of frozen.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure how helpful it would be at the moment, but it's definitely something that with the change in town management, they might want to do.
So
I think
This
part
is-
of our discussion about it came out of the concern isn't probably, it puts too strong a point on it, but the issue that the completion of the strategic plan relies on staffing. And so once the strategic plan's in place, doing an assessment of the staff on not just a one-year basis, but looking out over the life of the plan would be important to be able to execute the plan. Because the plan's dependent on staff and volunteers, but for the significant amount of staff. And so we thought that, like the capital improvement plan, where you're looking out over a period of time, that would benefit resource management relative to this strategic plan. Obviously, resource management for other areas too, but that's why we felt kind of strongly that it needed to be in there. So,
What was the concern? Just the action of
No.
it, or?
well, I think it was just that
development of the plan?
we weren't anticipating, and this is a point for discussion, so it was
Adding
just,
staff.
we weren't anticipating adding staff and doing a
Period.
formal
Well, a
plan.
staffing plan could mean a
It could be-
reduction
Be a reduction or
Yeah.
reassignment.
or
or
reassign,
Yeah.
reassignment.
Yeah.
doesn't
You know,
necessarily mean adding.
reallocation of resource, we need more people if we're doing a big wastewater project, we need more people over here and fewer people over here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean adding.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
a
I
thought.
think, when I did the staffing plan originally, what I was looking at was combining, I mean, we created community development. That was one of my first changes. So we've done this similar thing, but it's not finished with human service. So we're 2/3 of the way there, and
Right.
then there's another position there that should be. So I think we can talk about it, but no, we weren't anticipating having to move or add to complete this plan.
Different question. If part of it aligns with the budget, which makes sense to me, is there something there that you look, maybe it's annually, in terms of when you're developing the budget, you're looking at personal service and you're trying to figure out how things could.
Yeah, and the bigger issue is next year, unlike other towns, Eastham does all their contract negotiations in the same year. So we have 5 unions and we do them all at once. Which makes it awful, but it's good for budgeting and it's good for, going to town meeting, and it just makes sense for us because we'd rather have one miserable year than
Half a year, half a miserable
3
year.
miserable years, and then you feel like you're just a gerbil on a wheel. So next year is that year. So that would be the time that we would perhaps look at classifications, look at, is someone being paid too much to do this, too little to do this? Do we need this here or there? So yes, that would be next year.
But we do that
Every,
as part of the annual budget process anyway.
not really, Paul. We do it every 3 years when we do contracts. So next year would be the year.
So to me, it would be good to reflect on the plan, just as a management tool, just.
You could just add that in, that, every 3 years, do a look at staffing. Just expand what you have there, what 1.2 says, reword it to make it the every 3 years if you're talking about to analyze staffing needs in conjunction with the budget and contracting process.
Well, let me ask, do you anticipate that all of these projects can be done with current staffing levels.
Yeah. I mean, we've never added staff for specific events in the strategic plan. Wastewater is almost 100% consulting. We will want to add a water superintendent position, but that will most likely be built into the appropriation that we move forward into.
So the contract negotiation, is that good for 3 years, so the salaries don't change for 3 years?
That's correct.
Oh.
Mhm.
I'm used to the public sector, so that's,
Yeah.
that's really interesting.
Right.
So could you say like in 2026 and every 3 years thereafter, conduct staffing assessment consistent with budget development and negotiation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would work, because we do that routinely.
Right.
And then every 10 years or so, we'll do a reclassification study, which we hire an outside person to come in and do. But,
And we, for our purposes, we weren't focusing on the reclassification issue that I know you need to do from a
Yeah.
management perspective. We were more concerned about the skill level and the number of people needed to execute the plan. So,
Yeah.
okay.
And Jackie, if
You
if
have-
somebody leaves, do you automatically backfill that job, or do you assess if you still need it?
it depends, since I've been here, which is, I'm in my 11th year, so since I've, since I've been here, we've only had one period where we have been cautious, where we have frozen, or we have not hired, or I personally believe that we're going into another one of those periods. So like this next contract negotiations is gonna be odd for us, because we've had a robust economy and
Right.
for a while, so I think, Rich and I are nervous about that, and making, sort of psychological plans, strategic plans for that. But that's really the first time, other than COVID, we eliminated a couple of programs during COVID. I cut the budget $1 million that year. But, then we sort of sallied forth just fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
revenue came in fine,
Well,
everything else was fine.
Tacit sections are just.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
didn't know, yeah.
So no, I totally
Yeah.
get that. So no, it's not automatic. We think about every position. And like, for instance, we just had, Richard created a new, I'm sorry, I'm taking.
No, it's just.
It's a good.
Richard created a new IT position because we have so much software.
Mhm.
And we have nobody on staff that could help people learn the software. So we were relying on the consulting firm that's selling us the software to do
Mm.
and that just wasn't working out for us. So we created a position 2 years ago, 3 years ago for that, applications position. That person came, worked with us a year and a half and left. And now we've taken that, we rethought that position, and we thought, we had 2 part-time staff sort of picking it up, and they did it really well. So we cut that in half, so it's half applications and half external communications for us,
Yeah.
getting someone.
Because that was what I was thinking about, not that specific, but because in here, this excellence in town services also includes public communication and, interactive ability to get
So-
feedback and surveys, and there's a bunch of communication,
So,
emergency stuff, that's in here, that as long as you have staff to do
so
that.
we've created the new position, and it's sort of, half and half.
Right.
But, what I find is the application stuff comes in clumps.
Mhm.
It comes in, it's kind of intensive, and then it goes away for a little while, and then we do a new application of some sort.
Mhm.
So I think it'll work, but that's one of the things that we do each time someone leaves. Is this the right position? Are we using it the best way we can? Can we pivot?
Great, excellent.
Yeah.
That's a very
And
good-
I don't think I don't know for a fact, but my perception is you don't have a lot of staff turnover.
We haven't. I mean, we have had a couple of periods, like right when I first came, when the change in management happened between Sheila and me. We lost some old time. I lost the town accountant, the
Right.
town treasurer, in the same year. I
Right.
mean, like within 4 months. That was awful. But beyond that, no, we don't. Police and fire, there's a little bit, but
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty
pretty consistent.
stable.
Yeah. Mhm. And as I said, we've only had one period of layoffs, and that was, COVID. Preparing for.
Okay. So with that change, that's, I think for me, that satisfies what
Yes, there's a line,
I was
yeah.
hoping.
It makes sense. Yeah,
So, yeah, hope you have
I
that
will send
language,
it
you
to
can
you.
send it to me.
it was beautiful.
Yeah, that's good.
He's good with that.
The other,
Good with words.
the other one was the action item to develop a service animal policy, which I put in there because it was just in the ADA plan. Laurie said
It's a big challenge.
that basically how we do it now is requests for service or comfort animals are reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and I think that provides some flexibility. I guess
Is this
my,
for what purpose? For anything? In all?
For
I'm
what?
just.
ADA.
oh, yeah, we had,
So coming into buildings and to,
yeah, and also for like,
Yeah.
I just didn't.
but also for like staff, that like,
Oh.
to have, so.
Is that
I think-
covered under some other, I can't
Right.
remember anymore, ADA action in here? And I can't remember.
I
No,
think the other ADA action, there is another ADA action. But it has to do, I think, more specifically with buildings and
All right.
hardscape stuff.
so I guess my take on it was that sometimes it's better to not have a policy because it gives you flexibility, and the nature of these things is it gets a little, I mean, everyone wants to bring a dog in,
Right, I know.
but then, who
Get on an
who has a
airplane now,
legitimate,
it's mostly
who has a
dogs.
legitimate need versus just it'd be nice to, so I guess, so the recommendation was that we not emphasize that
Okay.
as an action item because we basically handle it as needed now, so not to put a
That's-
specific
okay.
action. So that would be a recommendation, to just take that one out. And
We don't have any sport cats yet.
Yeah.
But there should be in every single building.
And then I'm wondering if we
Li-
could
at the
support
library, at
cats and
least.
support dogs, how are they gonna work that?
They will
out?
learn.
It should be a support at the library. Working place.
So those are the only changes to the kind of the matrices. Which, that's pretty much the guts of the whole plan. When I sent out the latest version, so I basically put some placeholders in for like. The only thing left to do is really just the executive summary and like what narrative we want to put around it, and then
And so we have that other draft, that other document,
This one.
that one, but there is another one from which that was developed.
Yeah,
As that we could use.
that's
We
what
can get to that,
that's what I
exactly.
basically pasted in
That's what this is.
that language that you was coming up with, so.
Right, okay.
There's just getting that language finished, and then I think just what is the game plan for the final rollout to the public, feedback.
Yep.
And moving towards getting this back to the select board for their endorsement.
So before we get, first we need to get there, before we get there, are we all okay with this plan? As
Yes.
it's drafted now?
Yeah.
No, it's subject to select board change, other change, whatever.
Right, and I know we'll get into this on the next thing about just
Right.
the role of this committee, but again, this was designed to be updated on the fly, so again, as things are gonna come off and on, and so I think, which is nice, because we can amend this on the fly as needed, so if something's not right, then we work on it, so that's why it's not so locked in that we have to live with this for 5 years, and it's not, we have to get everything exactly right. It's flexible, so.
Good. So, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay. Roy?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. I wish you were up there. I know you're not up there really fast. All right, so we're good with this. Kathy, do you have anything? You're good with it?
I'm good with it, yeah.
Okay. So, do you need to take a vote on
Probably.
Well, I think,
Yeah,
I think we'd be good.
We're
okay,
voting to recommend or.
to adopt the draft,
Right.
the plan as draft.
Mhm.
So moved.
Second,
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now, are you taking notes again? Thank you so much. All of a sudden, that's on me.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank
No
you.
problem.
All right, so, good with that. So now we move to the next important step. Is, what is the next step? For and publicly, we're getting it, like the board, we're getting feedback, comment. And we have talked about making it available for public comment again. We already did one session, but we have something. More comprehensive now is there. We want to do that before we go to the select board.
What would, when we, can we start from backwards?
Yes.
When do we think that we want or need to have select board approved?
Good question, yeah.
We start there and then
Yeah.
work back time wise.
Do you think we should send this to the select board like now as a kind of preview to make sure? The
Yeah, I
board's
think
good
if we're
with it?
gonna go out for public comment, we should definitely they should have a copy so that when the public comments to them, like at the supermarket, they know what they're.
And does all that have to happen before town meeting? I mean, because town meeting is.
No.
No, I think if you're comfortable with this draft, we can just give them the draft. Not necessarily talk about it at a meeting or anything like that, but just give it to them as, reading material so that they have it and.
Well, they're also gonna, everybody will see it in the town warrant,
Right.
so they should see it. We give them, no
Yeah.
surprise.
Yes.
So,
Wait,
They're all gonna see this in the town.
this,
Yes, not.
Not
the full
that.
plan, not-
not the
No.
full
But
plan,
they'll see
but
the.
but there's enough in there that they'll probably get comments back from the
Yes.
public.
okay,
Yeah.
that's
so,
fine.
so we can send it to the select board now.
Yep.
Say this is the draft that has been approved by the committee. That will be vetted for public comment and a high level of which will be included in the town warrant.
Okay, so we're calling this the summary. I just want to get the names right for what I'm writing
I'm
down.
calling that the town warrant piece. I don't know.
Yeah, it's usually an annual summary.
Okay,
It's what we want to highlight for the year.
Well, in this case, we're highlighting stuff that was done and stuff that we're looking
Thank
ahead at. But is this what we want to use as the introduction to the plan itself? I think that's where the question is.
yeah, that was my question.
Oh, I don't know.
Let's say that's basically what I
Mhm.
took and pasted in as, I think we're trying to not have too much fluff in this
Right.
plan, so just a short, concise intro summary, and then just get into the charts, and that's the plan, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I know I keep saying this, I do want to play around with the layout and get it. Kayla can help me with that, but Kayla put together the town meeting.
It's really good.
So we can,
Yeah, I
we
liked
can do
it
a
a
better
lot.
job with the graphic and get it into a nice. presentable.
It's really good, but I paused when I got to the pictures next to the Northeast Ham and the zoning stuff.
Yeah,
It
we
seemed-
debated about that.
It seemed very not East Ham
Mhm.
to me, and when you're trying to get zoning passed that relates to that, and you're showing pictures of what sort of look like shopping mall and
But that's kind of what the consultant gave us, right?
I
To show the density.
yeah,
It's
And-
always
and you know what
because
I
as soon
feel-
as it went on
yeah.
Facebook, they were like, why is the town wasting money building all this stuff when we need A? And I'm like, we're not building A. There's nothing to do with building. There's no building being discussed.
right,
Yeah.
but you're showing visuals of certain
Yes.
buildings, so that gave me a little pause.
But if you're a visual person, you have to kind of, that's what we went back and
Right.
forth with it.
Oh, it's already gone to print.
Right,
Yes.
So,
Okay,
So it's there.
it's there.
so I think, so what gets sent to the select board? And do we send it as a committee or?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can send it as a committee and can we send both? Here's, I mean, they're gonna see that.
This will be
it's not
what's in the warrant
This
and we
is
can
what's in
send
the
it
warrant,
as
here's the
planned.
detail behind it.
Yeah.
Yes, I would do that.
Okay.
With the
Should
cover
it come
memo.
from you, Paul? I don't know.
I think it should come from Hope as chair of the committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
I just
committee's-
think a short cover memo.
Yeah.
And then plan,
Okay.
and I think after we figure out our next steps, we can put in the cover memo, we can say this is what we're planning to do for
Right.
the
Yeah.
rollout.
So back to when we think the select board would actually adopt the final step, which is adopting the plan. So would that be in June? I think
How
that's
long
what
are you gonna do with public comment?
Well, you're trying to back into that.
Yeah,
right?
I'm trying
Oh,
to
I'm sorry.
sort of
Yeah,
put some bookends on it. I think we talked about trying to have it adopted by the end of June. So as we're going into July, the fiscal year, that,
Mhm. And end of June or at the first meeting, select
or the
board
first
meeting
meeting
in
in
July.
July.
That's
One
what
or
we
the
had.
other.
so
So-
that means your public comment in May?
In
Give you
June.
time-
May and June.
In June.
May and
We need
early-
Time to accept comment, do revisions,
Right.
review it ourselves if needed.
So
Right.
late
So
May,
we-
early June for
Get it
public
done by
comment.
June 15th, public comment, and then we
Then
get
we-
on the select
mhm.
board agenda in July, first meeting in July.
So we can address any public comment at our regular meeting in June.
What we complete, we'll have it complete.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so
But we
any
did do
feedback,
another
yes.
Library meeting.
Yeah.
Good.
It was good.
It was.
I think people liked that format where there was a afternoon one and immediately a later one at the same time. I mean, same date.
Yeah,
Because
that
it
was the
was-
Northeast Union. When he did.
No,
this
no,
one.
no, this one. Well, was that the Northeast?
It
Yes,
was
there was
the
a
right.
Northeast one.
But people liked that format from what I heard,
Mhm.
or at least like having the option of two different times because.
Yeah. The double header,
Was it
And
double
the
header?
child-
give the same presentation back to
The
back.
childcare thing was good too.
It
Yeah.
was.
Northeast.
That was good, I'm glad we were able to
was.
do that.
With public comment by 6:15, meaning we have public presentations.
Want to do that in May? I just gotta find the date that it's available, but we'll just,
The library.
Okay, public presentations in May, public comments by 6:15, complete with,
Like before
Comment.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
yeah, by end of June and select board in July.
You think we're gonna be able to-
Very busy May and June.
Do we want to run this by committees and boards again? Our final set of comments separately from the public meetings.
I think that comes as part of the public comment. We could notify each committee that we have a public comment period. And
Like
they're
that.
welcome to come, not rolling back through presentations to the
I love
committees.
that.
Okay.
It hasn't changed that significantly.
No, it
from the
hasn't.
last review.
Uh-huh.
What do you think?
Mhm.
Okay. Good.
And that your staff, Jackie, is all, has seen this, you know, everybody who's affected is in sort of
I think people,
stakeholder.
like always, some of them worked much harder on it than others, but they all have to live and die by it now, so.
Just want to make sure anybody who's impacted.
Yeah,
their
but
name's on it.
you know,
I've seen it.
before we have a meeting with the select board during the public comment period, we can send it to staff again.
Sure.
so I think we just aim for like the first select board meeting in July, if we can get on that agenda, and then we're synced up with the fiscal year and.
And I would say honestly, anytime before Labor Day is fine, because they start to think about, they set their goals, and if we're really on it in late August.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Great.
Sounds like a plan.
We should still try to do our public comment, I would say, before one meeting.
Yes,
yeah,
Because people might be leaving.
Yeah, we'll put it online, so we can do that May through June 15th, we'll put it online, we'll put it through social media, get it out there. I'll find a date for the library before Memorial Day, and we'll do that session, we can set it up the kind of double header format, and if I can get the childcare thing and that whole thing, that'd be
Yeah.
great, and then, yeah, then we'll address any public comments we get back at our next meeting, figure out what we need to do, if anything, and then our goal will be to get everything wrapped up, so we can go to the select board in July at least,
And I
some
think,
point in July, and then that's good, it'll give us a push to if we do gotta go back and clean anything up.
Yeah,
yeah, I think we should FYI the Part-Time Residents Taxpayers Association. Give them a separate heads up that this is,
Okay.
and then I would, something came up in the last public comment one where, people were asking Rich how this process sort of dovetails with the budgeting process, and so maybe just some preemptive comments on that
Okay.
would be really good, because you don't want to get to the end of it and people go, how are we gonna pay for all this? And,
Exactly, right.
some sort of a proactive way,
Yes.
from
Yes, it
Jack and
is.
you, or,
Yeah.
here's kind of
Yeah.
how this
Yeah.
works, because this is a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Here's from a process standpoint, how we do this.
Okay.
so some of
So-
that may have gone head over tail
I mean,
lately.
everybody's great, but I mean, you don't want to make it seem like, oh,
I know, but
Well, yeah,
I've
good
been,
idea.
I've been wondering how the current economic situation will affect all of this.
Well, I'm
who knows what it's gonna be.
We're
like.
pretty, I have a pretty big update for Paul just from yesterday.
I guess maybe, alright,
Uh-oh,
I'll put that to the side.
I'm trying not to think about that, Paul.
Yeah, I don't have to think about it.
I think if me and Jackie and Rich can work on that piece, and then it can actually be good to have a slide in for the presentation. We have it all worked out.
Yeah.
Right. Then we
And,
can
you know,
carry
I
that
think
through.
Rich can do, we're gonna have to do it anyway, but he can do literally 2 paragraphs that talk about how the town has been saving for wastewater for 5 years now.
Mhm.
So, we're continuing to look at that. So we plan ahead for some things, and other things, you don't know how much they're gonna cost.
Right.
Mhm.
So it might speed something up or slow something down depending on the funding sources that we have and whether they come in higher or lower, or
Yeah.
it's mostly around timing more than it is around taxpayer funding,
Sure.
really.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's really powerful and wonderful how the process works. It's just a lot of people just
Yeah,
aren't.
totally.
Yeah.
Right.
They're like, oh, wow, we're putting this cool thing together. Well,
Yeah.
It's got all this
what's
stuff
it
in
gonna
it.
cost me?
Yeah.
And I remember the first plan we did, and everyone was obsessed by money, like, okay, so how are we gonna afford it? And like, we can't think about money, you have to think about what the
you wanna
goals
do.
are. And then we'll backtrack and figure out, is it gonna take 5 years, is it gonna take 40 years, is it gonna take, but you can't start with.
No, and
Right.
you
No,
also
come
have to look at what are other sources of funding.
Exactly.
What are grants or donations or.
Sure.
And this is also a guide for your budget, and you have a budget process.
Mhm.
We have a town meeting process, and that's.
Right, and especially things like the engineering projects and stuff, Rich has to know about those ahead of time, because we do have to plan for them in the capital budget, so they have to go on the capital budget.
Right.
At least a year or 2 before we need any funding for it.
Great. I think that's great.
And then you hope there's a lot of grant money or
Right.
other funding coming along,
Yeah.
but this sets you up for that.
Exactly. We have a plan, we're working a plan.
All right, so now, this is a question for Paul. So number 3 on this is discussion on plan implementation across the organization. What is that what we just talked about?
No.
No, what
Well-
is that? Or because then there's also the role of the strategic planning committee, which is something that you and Michelle work on. So
Well, I think those two things kind of,
they come, okay, I just wasn't sure. So should we move to this role of strategic planning committee? Okay. That's good with everybody?
Yes.
All right. So I think everybody received that document. I don't know if you have it on the screen, and everybody didn't get it, and then I'm going to say Michelle and Paul the table. So, and this is a really important one. I think,
This is.
all of us, because how do we help you, the town,
Mhm.
to use this as a tool?
And stay on target.
Stay on target, use it to assess where things are going, aren't going, what needs to be changed. So like that would be my hope, is that this is a management tool in addition to a public plan to say this is what we believe at the town is important.
Mhm.
Actually, Roy, could I ask you, are you seeing
Yes.
us or the shared screen?
Pardon?
What are you seeing on your screen right now? The document or us?
What we covered the last time, I mean, a few minutes ago, complete construction of water tower 2.
Okay,
I just see a little pictures up on top of it.
Well, Michelle, you want to
Sure.
jump in on?
Sure, so, and Karen, you've been involved in the plan prior to this, and whatever we did or didn't do as a committee to manage it, during this time, and Jackie, I think you're putting a spell on me.
It doesn't matter.
So I think, so what I did and originally was just take the current charter language off of the website, which is kind of what we're chartered to do, and there's two sections to it. One is what we do during plan update years, which is what we just did, and then during active plan years. So there's a section on that. And it's pretty general. It's written right here. The committee shall work to support town progress toward the goals, review and proactively provide comments on new projects and initiatives to determine alignment, and provide advisory guidance to staff on annual strategic plan progress report for the public. Okay, so I think what we don't want is to be police people.
Right.
You know, and we don't want to be doing a lot of admin work where we're, you know, sort of sitting in committee meetings to find out if they're in alignment, and then, you know, giving them a performance review scorecard at the end to tell them how they're not. I mean, I think that's what we don't want to do. You know, I do think, I mean, one of the questions is, do we have a role or not? And I definitely think we do, you know, during active plan years. So you know, there's 7 recommendations here and options. And one is, and I put them in timeframes, so whether it's quarterly, biannually, monthly, et cetera. But the first one is, and I thought we could just use those as discussion items, like, oh, we like number 3, but we don't like number 5. One is the committee would meet quarterly to review and document goal progress activity as presented by town staff. So Jackie, some of this is predicated on what your process would be to keep, so we can act in support of whatever process you put in place
Mhm.
to make sure that this is a living document and a living, so
Okay.
we can provide, we can do documentation of it, we can create a public speaking point document from what actually is happening quarterly and produce things. We can do whatever we need to do. So that was the first one. The second one was that the Strategic Planning Committee would meet quarterly, separate meeting from number 1 to review new projects and initiatives and update the plan accordingly. So I really thought that the progress against what's already documented and anything that's new coming in should be treated separately, because I don't think we can be efficient and effective in the meeting if we're trying to do all of it at the same time.
Right.
So it could be that there's a quarterly review of what's happening against the stuff that's already documented. And there's quarterly, so it could be 2 meetings, 2 different meetings during the quarter to review whatever's new. And that gets accumulated. Now, quarterly may not be frequent enough if new projects are coming up more frequently than that. And I just don't know. I mean, if there's something all of a sudden that's gonna happen in the Northeast Dam project that is requiring us to do a reconciliation against the plan, maybe that's a monthly meeting for a quarter. You know, but anyway, the concept there was to take the, you know, sort of reconciliation with what we've already documented meeting, separate from whatever's new that we might want to add or delete. I don't know. I mean, we can discuss whatever those are 2.
I kind of disagree with that
Okay,
in the sense that if a new project is being proposed at a high enough level of activity that it warrants inclusion in the strategic plan, okay, as opposed to just new stuff that happens all the time in the day-to-day business of the town. But if it rises to that level so that it might kick something else off, as an example, or might consume resources that otherwise would have to be redeployed, I think that has to happen in context with what's going on with the current projects, because I think it's the resources part of that that's related.
sure.
And so I think those two discussions should happen in the same meeting.
Well, and I was thinking it does have to be reconciled all together. The
Right.
first one was more just in support of Jackie's process that she runs.
Right,
So it's not our own
right,
meeting. And then the other one was maybe in the course of our regular meetings, we review progress as well as new initiatives.
right. I just
That was what I was
think they,
And also, how do we make meetings efficient? Because that's the other part I was trying to think about for Hope when trying to run a meeting where we're dealing with the
No.
entirety of this plan and new stuff that comes up and how do we handle it?
Just everything's kind of, but Jackie, what is your
Well, that-
curator sitting there?
I mean, I think, one of the hopes we had the last time was that we could use the strategic planning committee to help prioritize financial especially. So it's not like we come up with something totally new, well, that's possible, right? But that something we might have to choose in a given
Conflicts.
year whether to go forward with A or B. They're both on the plan, they're both important, but we don't have enough money to do both of them, or, some things. And we wanted staff to be able to justify rising elevating a project because it fit into the plan, or it fit into the plan more strongly, or whatever, so that we could use that. We never really got
We
there
never got
at
there.
all. And that was a disappointment. I think we all really wanted that piece, and it isn't. So that's excellent. I love that
Mhm.
piece. And I think, I kind of think, I understand what Carolyn's saying. I think separate meetings, though, I love the regular updates. Regular updates are gonna force me to get regular updates. That will force the staff to get regular. We need those.
Yeah.
And I think quarterly is good, because in between, if you do it more frequently than that, you're not gonna get anything really that useful.
Mhm. Well, we did it less frequently last time, and we tried to do it more frequently and get a handle on that, but it was very hard to get that information back to the committee.
Yeah.
Lauren worked on that a lot, but
Yeah.
it didn't necessarily get back to us in a way that was useful.
I think that's the key to making it work is this process work, because it really is it's a repetitive process. So it's got to have some structure to it.
Right.
And doing it in a way that it's not burdensome on the staff. I mean, they have enough to do besides reporting to a committee.
Right.
That's why I was thinking monthly would be too much.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
But if we make it simple enough, and I think it's structured well enough now, because the rest of this is in kind of support of that.
Mhm.
So if I could just go through the rest, so 3 is just the biannual update to the select board. So that
Biannual
does-
or semi-annual?
Which one is it?
Semi.
Semi.
Twice a year, twice a
Bi
year,
is two, what is bi?
by every 2
Every
years.
two.
Oh, all right,
So
Thank you.
biennial,
Semi-annual.
Am I?
okay.
well,
So semi-annually was every 6 months, thanks. Karen.
Yeah.
And then the next one was that we could potentially divide and conquer. And be assigned to, rather than all of us do all of it.
Mhm.
We could each be assigned to specific goals. To track progress along with town staff and town committees responsible, and we could potentially do that monthly. In preparation and assist them in preparing for your quarterly review. Potentially, I mean, we don't wanna that's why I just put a lot of things, we can cross a bunch of them out. Just, it's whatever, we can do to help get this thing.
I was thinking about that, and again, trying to not be burdensome on staff and to be helpful. Maybe an alternative would be somewhat like the select board does. It takes the committees and each committee is assigned a select board liaison person who's supposed to
Mhm.
help them and advise them, et
That was
cetera.
the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if each of the main staff that have responsibilities for strategic plan activities is assigned one of us, and we just communicate with them so we can help be their advocate and lead point at the quarterly meeting. I think trying to do any kind of reporting monthly.
No.
It is just
And
too
again,
much.
yeah, I mean, that's fine. I thought each one of us could kind of own a goal and then there'd be a number of staff.
We are all on different committees.
Some of you
can-
represent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm on Board of Health. So maybe we just ask the committees to add to their agendas strategic plan review. Maybe there's an update, maybe there isn't, maybe it's a
Mhm.
second thing.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
And
but,
then-
but the plan doesn't really correlate directly to specific boards and
No.
committees, so.
Not entirely.
People would know what is under their purview, right? At least in the health area, I think they would.
I think that lends itself for some committees, some of the topics. We just have to look to see, and if they're loose ends, we have a loose end.
But there are a lot of areas that are not specifically related to the boards or committees we sit on, or that are broader than what the committees handle on a regular basis. So I still think that it makes sense to have a point person from this committee focusing on particular areas of the plan, but I don't know if like the Conservation Commission gets enough information coming into it about all the things that are related in the plan on a regular basis to make that, to make a report back.
Who would?
Well, there's different staff members and different departments working on things that are related to conservation, so we're not necessarily getting updates while things are in progress, or sometimes we don't get them until we have a filing in front of us.
But aren't you talking? I'm confused now, because I thought we're talking about if each one of you is responsible for communication back and forth with the committee or the board or the part of the plan, then you would be actually
Yes.
updating.
Right.
Okay, I got a little confused then
Yeah,
on how that you were relating it more specifically to the Board of Health and
Well,
those
just an
meetings as
example.
opposed to, okay.
Yeah.
No, but I think it makes sense for you to get the assignment for the things that are related to
Yes.
Board of
Right,
Health
yeah.
and those things, and likewise. And then there's gonna be certain, and then we'll have to decide who gets what for the things that are not a direct correlation, but.
Right, and
But I guess I was just thinking structurally about if one goal touches a health issue, an ADA issue and a planning issue, I don't think it makes sense for us to split things up.
Right.
Like if it's goal 4, regardless of if
Well, but that would be
if it
fine, you would
overlaps.
say.
As long as I would go to you if like something I was
Well, when we
responsible
would come
for.
back
had help.
together, that would be the reason for us coming
Right.
together.
mhm.
I'm just-
So-
yeah.
So like if it's a health thing, that's also an environment thing, that's also a plan, I don't know. But we would just say, to say the Board of Health, this is an activity that's in the strategic plan, it touches multiple areas, but it includes the Board of Health, so we need to put it before you and open it up in case there's comments, thoughts, and discussion. Right, I like that. But then we collectively come back together and say, this is what we found in terms of whatever thinking, because you have staff at all of these meetings.
Mhm.
Which is important, I think, so they will be there also to voice their perspective.
Yeah, we now have very few committees that are on staff. Used to have a lot more.
Yeah, that's-
And I think for these particular topics,
They're all pretty.
they're all pretty highly staffed. I just worry about inserting ourselves as a committee between the staff and Jackie.
That is what I don't want.
I don't like that.
Yeah, and I think it just doesn't work because I think the last time it became an issue because certain staff people if you asked them to come, they'd come to the meeting, they'd spend 9 hours with you, whether I wanted them to or not, you know? And others would avoid you like the plague and be like, I'm way too busy, I can't, I can't even fill out a sheet of paper. So I think it is better if we set it up on any kind of a regular schedule. And I know that you need the update and Paul and I can, make sure that they give the update.
Yeah, I
Or-
think the updates have to go through Jackie to us. And, because,
Well, she needs to tell them that
To
she
do it.
needs the
Yes.
update.
Yes.
And we're here to help support them.
and yes, and answer questions or do what we can. But I think it has to go through Jackie.
Yeah, and I guess the thing about the update is that is where we're gonna find out. Are we adequately staffing the project? Do we have the resources we
Right.
need to do the project? Cause that sometimes will be a part of the update, I haven't been able to get to it, or, and that's okay. I don't mind if staff says that, but we need to know that
So I
sooner
love
rather
that,
than later.
Because I think developing a template for the update,
Right,
Yeah.
staffing, funding, whatever, fill out these,
That would be good, yeah.
And then every update is in the same format. And then you can even highlight it red, green, yellow.
Wait,
You know.
wait, is it separate from the documents that Paul has developed?
Well, the update is not gonna be that big template, right? It's gonna be whatever goal, each goal, and then there'll be an update for, the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. Or do you think it should be right inside the document itself?
I'm worried about having too many. Too many documents. I just was
Mhm.
like, because you just want internal
Think about it like a format, not a format that everyone follows,
format,
that's
okay.
similar, right? Rather than a
Yeah.
form document, but.
Would the updates be kind of everything on every quarter, or would things be staggered, like?
I would do everything every quarter, and then if there's no progress, then they just say that, right?
And some of it is an out year to do it.
Right.
Yeah, I would think everything every quarter and you just do red, green, yellow, but we cover, is it a staffing issue? We identify if it's a yellow or a red, why is that?
okay, we don't identify that, the staff identifies that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're just documenting,
Right.
we're helping them produce the update.
Right, so we
We're
got,
supporting the
So-
process.
So we can create a consistent, user-friendly template that
Right.
staff can fill out to provide the quarterly update.
That
That
goes to
really
Jackie.
goes out through Jackie's office to staff,
Right.
goes back to Jackie, goes back to what role do the committee members play in their assignments to these areas that we were talking about before, like, or do they? Or is
Yeah.
that a piece of it at all?
I think if we develop whatever format that is. Quarterly, Jackie reminds the staff, okay, it's time for the quarterly update on the strategic plan. And she sends that out to her staff, they get it back, that puts a package together, that comes to us, we look at it. If we see areas where we have some concern, we take that back to Jackie, we don't go back to the staff person. Again, I
think
don't,
we're gonna have meetings too, right?
right. Jackie comes to our quarterly meeting maybe, where we review their progress, but if we see or feel like there's a problem, I don't think it's up to us to go back to the staff person and
No,
say,
no,
we have a
no.
problem.
That's what I was trying to figure out. Is
My thought was only in an administrative, keep the process moving.
Yeah, I like it.
It's not in a qualitative, we don't agree that this, solution that you're proposing is a good one. I was more, having managed large plans, it's one of those things that when you're doing daily work, it's the last thing you wanna do.
Right.
To put an update together on something that's as, significant as this with 60 to 100 points to it and all that stuff. And if I had a side person that said, hey, I'll put that format, I'll tell you what I wanna put in here, and I was just thinking of we're sort of at your service to help support the process, is what, I mean, I'm willing to do that, maybe not, we're not.
Yeah.
That's what would you like that?
That would be very helpful.
Informed from, if I was assigned to you or whomever, Christie, or whoever, I get informed straight from the person of what's going, and I just provide my service, whatever it is.
I
Now,
mean,
that may not work. We can evaluate it after the first quarter. That's what was the intent of it. It was not a qualitative, hey, we don't think that's a good idea.
Right.
I
Who
think,
am I to say that?
I think,
Being available, that's lovely.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that would be helpful. And I think if, once the staff understands that, it's like, yes, staff will be meeting with one of you, but it's like, so they can make it easier to do the reporting back, because you're
Right.
gonna
I
be
mean,
there.
sometimes if I have somebody that's there, even if
You
just
can
the
just talk
person
to
is
them,
there,
yeah.
it makes me actually get it done.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Oh, we'll just go to lunch and get it done.
But I'm gonna push back on form a little bit. Just hear me out. So we have this form that has a status bound. Why wouldn't, in terms of yellow, green, blue, whatever question would it, yeah, why wouldn't we just use it? Why would we have a different one?
I think I'd be fine with that, Hope. I just think we need to then say, is it because of funding, staffing?
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, we can put in,
But-
delay because.
But it's the guideline of what, like, pick from this drop down
Mhm.
menu
Well,
of
that's-
what the issue is.
well, it's a matter of how much information is coming to us versus how much is on those lines. So what we have now doesn't allow for much detail. So, but it doesn't need to have all of that detail in that. So it needs to come to us and then go to Jackie and Paul so that they know where it's kind of bottlenecked.
I just picture like, the regular updates are gonna be, if things are actually happening, it's gonna be nothing's happening, here's why, or we held 5 meetings. This document got submitted to XYZ, or this meeting was, just,
We're
That-
waiting for the USDA.
yeah, we're waiting,
Yeah.
we're waiting on this, like, and that's
Sent out an RFP.
right.
Yeah.
And next meetings, so that's really what the update is. And so if we have a basic template document that gets filled out, and the date, and that can be,
That
and that can
along with
be,
all of these action steps?
I think
So
so.
that-
I mean, those reports can just be, filed, and you wanted to see what it was, action item 1.2.3,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
it's available. If we get to the point where the quarterly update is like, we did it, it's done.
Yeah.
Then we go to the status update and we update that, it's completed or whatever it is, or it's the project's not viable, it's on hold indefinitely, then that's the last quarterly update on that gets updated
And it
until that
doesn't change.
changes. That was what I
Excuse
was
me,
thinking,
Paul?
and then, oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I couldn't figure out where that was coming from.
I
I
know.
couldn't figure it out from it.
It's coming from here.
Roy,
Paul, do you have any idea in terms of how many staff members would be involved in this process? Or is it too early to tell?
I haven't looked back, but I could do that right now.
We probably come- Well, me,
You.
Hillary,
It comes
DPW.
down to, honestly, I was thinking about this, the senior management team, really.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be, Paul, Hillary,
Rich.
Shayna, Rich, me. That's our core group. And then Lori Barr, if it's staffing related, that we pull specific people in.
and
And then the committee, like, climate action, Shayna is their staff person, so that would
right.
work, although they'd probably wanna talk to you on their own, and they're like, so organized and efficient. They'll be giving you 10-page reports,
oh, yeah.
and I'll be,
but we
Right.
have Shayna's project meeting.
Yeah,
stuff.
and that's what I was
So we
thinking,
could-
how do we
We could
weave
work
that?
this into that, because we already have a regular,
All the,
meeting
all
of
the
those.
projects that aren't day-to-day activities, we have her keeping track of our progress, right? That's her job.
So isn't that the same, that's kind of the same thing.
It is, except that some of them would be on the plan and some of them might not.
No, right.
but I think we can start to
know,
organize
those-
that meeting around more
That's
closely
right.
to the plan. And then there's
Yeah.
always random stuff that we gotta
Yeah, at least once a
talk
quarter.
about. But so then,
Oh, Shane.
so then basically, then
And then
the committee-
Dorothy and Christine maybe,
But Christine.
Yeah.
but not,
But
like,
the-
you know.
So we
once a
would
year.
have, we could have this template that could be, the data could be stored and linked back, so if someone wanted to go online, look at this stuff that's available. But then staff,
Mhm.
the committee liaisons to each one, it's like, when it's, like you were saying, and when it's getting time to like do the quarterly report, you can meet with that staff and say, like, how can I help you put this together? Or-
Right.
And I think where it would be very helpful is like just having a meeting and discussing this stuff, and getting out there, and it's like, maybe it's
You're
like,
thinking
yeah,
about
I
it.
can put this all on
Wow, I've done so much more than I
paper for-
thought.
yeah, and I think that's where it's helpful, where
There
it's
is
not
a
just
power
the
of having
staff.
Somebody else there. with
No, I
you
think that's a
to
wonderful
get it
thing,
done.
as opposed to like, you get this due date on your calendar and the staff person has to like fill out, it's like.
Yeah, like, I'll do that
I
tomorrow.
mean, I think everyone would accept and hope we can get, so the staff will go.
Hey, Roy, did you have a follow-up to the number of staff?
I just want to make sure we're not being too burdensome on town staff. I know people are very busy in that town hall.
I honestly, I feel really good. I did not feel good about the last iteration and the details that they were trying to get. I think this will work and I think it will achieve the goal, which is to keep us moving forward in a systematic way to figure out why we are not, which is not always bad. It is what it is, right? And
Right.
then, to have you guys be connected to it, I think that's fine. I think this group is really on the right track with us. I think it was the metrics stuff that.
Oh,
we
the
just got
metrics stuff
lost.
made everybody's head
It
explode.
we could just never get there.
Did we want to include DPW on this list of?
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
I think we
yes.
should.
All right, so
Okay,
going
so-
back to the recommendations, are we having one quarterly meeting?
Well, almost one, we've listed three.
Right,
We
Number
listed
1, 2,
4.
and 5
yeah,
are quarterly meetings.
so but this committee will meet quarterly.
Yeah.
We will meet quarterly with Jackie, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, which could be one of our quarterly meetings.
Why wouldn't that be the same
It would
meeting?
be the same meeting, yes, but
Okay,
we're
great.
not, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Or should we continue to meet quarterly? No. Okay, we're gonna continue to meet quarterly.
Well, quarterly twice is 2 meetings every 3 months instead of 3. I'm just a little worried about trying to handle too much in one meeting. And then if we don't need the second meeting, because there's no new things, or we covered off all the new things in the one that we already met with Jackie, then we don't have to have a second meeting.
I'm a proponent of,
Being
I'd rather have
holistic.
1 2-hour meeting than 2 1-hour meetings.
It's
just-
scheduling.
Scheduling
Scheduling.
is much easier.
That's,
Yeah.
well, believe me,
We've
I'm
got
busy.
4.
That's
I know you are.
Yeah,
So we've got 4 quarterly meetings here. We've got one thing that we do twice a year, which is the select board thing, and then we've got a monthly meeting here as well.
These are all ideas. So
Yeah,
This was,
okay.
yeah,
So
pick
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the menu.
Right,
1, 5, and 2.
yeah.
Let me just finish the last
Okay.
bit. So the 6 and 7, which is here, one was that we would be accountable for doing this each active plan year for the
Mhm.
town warrant. And that we would, and this was another one that I don't necessarily agree we should do, but I threw it on there, that we could meet with the town committee chairs quarterly to discuss progress. And I think, Hope, your idea, we're on, like I'm on planning, yeah, I mean, we
Put it
just
on the
do-
agenda.
do
That's a
it
better idea.
in the process of
Mhm.
what we already do, but
Yeah.
we just have to make sure that as the committee member, that's the liaison with the strategic planning committee, just say, remember. to do that. Yeah. Great.
I think number 6 gets easier to do if when we have accumulated all the quarterly reports. It's just
Yes.
Right.
going through and not
Right.
trying to grab things out of the air at the last minute to. put
And
in.
we should, when we do the calendar for the year, whatever we decide, we quarterly, but that we plan this in the timing so we can get it in time for print and review.
So one thing that's not on here is that we tried in the past to have some language from the Strategic Planning Committee on the warrant itself and the articles relating to it. So
That was good.
I liked having that.
Yeah, I did too.
Said that again, I didn't quite
You
follow.
opined on how the warrant article matched the strategic plan.
Right.
Or didn't, but we tried not to have any that didn't, right? So
Mhm.
I can show you that warrant. I think we did it two years.
It wasn't
Yeah.
last.
No, but it
No.
was the year before and the year before, and
Yeah.
it's nice, cause it's, you know, the select board, FinCom, and then the strategic planning committee.
And I just missed sort of what that is. Can you say that again?
So it's a paragraph, not much more than that, on how the particular item in the warrant aligns or doesn't align with the strategic planning goals.
And they would actually quote the, you know, part of the
Okay.
plan.
Yeah,
Um,
quoting the section of the plan.
like, for
And-
instance, the Delgizzi taking, we have a land taking on the warrant this time.
Mhm.
If I were to try and relate that to the strategic plan, it would have multiple pieces, because
Yeah.
it's wastewater, it's stormwater.
It's
and
housing.
Housing,
Got it.
so.
Okay, did we do that like as its own page in the warrant? or did
No,
we
it
put
was,
in
it was
the-
with
put
each,
in
it was
the
in,
summary?
it was with each
In
section.
the summary of. the-
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a great.
I think at one year we did a letter too, so it was the
So we had a-
select board
mhm.
letter, the FinCom letter, the strategic planning letter,
We
just
did-
highlighting
We did,
where
we
are.
did a couple of years of the
Yeah,
letter.
I like that too. I mean,
And
I
then we
think it
had the,
worked.
and then we had the insert in the back. So we were all over the,
Yeah, that was good.
it was good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So this committee would meet 4 times a year
at least.
to have
Mhm.
the reviews of the progress
Progress to
reports.
date,
One
yeah.
of the, and then how does that relate to the town manager meeting?
That
Jackie
would,
would be at that
Don't you
meeting.
come to our meeting?
well,
You just have to make me.
unless she runs the meeting. And we are there, it's. Okay, we run the
We'll run the meeting, but Jackie's there to.
We would meeting, and I'll bring any help I need.
meeting with whoever we get assigned to, so there's is extra time.
For
Required
us.
for
Yeah,
us
yeah.
than the 4 quarter,
Yes.
2 hour, which
Yeah.
I agree with you,
Mhm.
quarterly meetings.
And if it works out so that, like, you wanna do the first hour without me and then have me come in or something like that,
Right.
that works too.
And we will need to add in meetings closer to town meeting
Yeah, right,
season
that's what I was
Yeah.
saying, we gotta build extra time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
for that and for the.
So
warrant.
maybe in April. There's 2,
March,
Mar-
March.
eh,
there's
yeah.
2 meetings.
yeah,
Or February.
cause April
I
we go
know,
to. the-
April is in print.
Yeah.
So we need to
So,
put together.
so
an annual calendar.
just timing wise, when is
Yes.
the draft warrant? Kind of finalized?
It gets later every year, so,
March 31st, March 31st.
Well,
a
April-
new
it
person,
goes to the
if a new
print- wait a
person comes, they might start it in January. We start the next warrant as soon as town meeting is over.
And
Wow.
the printer's still about April 1st.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I would say that the draft warrant ideally should come out at the very beginning of March. In a form that's, like, we don't wanna have 27 drafts, we would prefer to have like 3 tops. So, but we keep a board with town meeting articles that we know are gonna have to come out.
Well, the next step, we have to put together an annual calendar.
So we're in, so how would that be from here? So if we're in,
You know what I can give you,
April?
the select board and finance committee have an annual calendar. So if I give that to you, you can see all the dates that are
Oh, good.
important to them.
Right, okay, that would be good.
and there is a review with the select board in here too, that might. biannual thing that's really semi-annual.
Right.
So is that something?
Well, we said for this year, we're gonna present it in July, to be consistent with the fiscal year. So,
But when we're doing an annual calendar, that
it'll
should
be
built
next
in.
July too, yeah, or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay.
And maybe it's only once a year and not twice a year.
For the select board,
Does it make sense to have that meeting when the select board are doing their goals? So then. Cause then.
Well, July
we know
works,
after-
because they could hear from the Strategic Planning Committee and then do the goals. Right?
And
They
then,
do the goals.
cause that's another
Usually
adjustment thing,
August,
like
September, sometime.
if we need to adjust the plan accordingly. So I guess one of those select board. Twice a year, select board meetings should be,
July and January.
yeah, probably before. They finalize their annual goals.
Yeah.
In September, so, yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. So the first quarter that we meet, so from here, we go to, there's town meeting after this. This meeting today, or do we have another meeting before that?
No, we won't.
We don't have to do any,
no,
and then when would we do our first meeting?
so we have to do a meeting after the public comment,
Got it, okay.
because we're gonna have to review the public comment.
Make the final recommendation to the select board,
Exactly.
and that takes care of the July select board. And then we'd have a July, August, September,
So we have
October
a
meeting.
June And then the
We have-
July select board or whenever,
Yeah.
and then we meet a quarter after.
I have an additional thing.
Oh,
Okay, so I don't know whether Paul told you about what was happening with wastewater. We weren't on the draft intended use plan. So we took wastewater off the May town meeting because it was not approved. We didn't make it above the line. They had an appeals process and we appealed our ruling, and then this is a long story, but I'm gonna make you suffer with me because I had the idea to imagine. They called us and said, you made the plan, you're above the line, above the funding line, but we're not gonna fund you because you won't be able to get authorization because we're not doing multi-year funding.
okay.
So for $170 million project, they were gonna give us 50 million, but we can't get authorization for 170 if we're only guaranteed 50, right? I mean, so we were like, this is kind of a catch-22. So that's what we were told. You're gonna make it onto the plan so that you can try and find funding elsewhere and you'll be in a better spot for next year. And we're delaying. Yesterday, this is why Paul doesn't know. Yesterday, the final intended use plan was released by the DEP, and we are listed and funded. And there's little tiny print at the bottom that basically says, if you are funded in 2025, then you have multi-year funding, so you're funded for the whole project. If you wait till 2026, we don't know, we can't guarantee anything.
Oh, good.
So we had the capital projects meeting yesterday, so I went into the capital projects meeting, like literally, I hadn't even processed it, I gave it to Rich, we both read the same line, we both had the same, so we just checked it out, and it is indeed the deal that was made for this year. So that means that if we do not move forward with wastewater, if we don't get a vote, an affirmative vote of town meeting by June 30th of this year, then we will not have guaranteed funding for the whole project. If we manage to, then we will. So it's now imperative that we have a special town meeting in June to ask the voters, because even though I feel like we're not ready and we haven't done the public process, and it doesn't matter, we have to
Right, get it
Yeah.
this year.
give, we have to give people the
Yeah,
Right, absolutely.
decision,
That
so.
sounds like very good news.
You know what? Yesterday it seemed like a tragedy, but I've regrouped now. I've regrouped, so I'm
Easy for me to say, I just have
I'm
to show
happy
up.
about it. I was like, oh my God, we go from the least dramatic town meeting in the world to now huge drama. So, it looks like, I mean, I haven't gone over the schedule with the Rich, but we'll probably be doing it like the third week in June.
Okay.
Which won't have anything really to do with our schedule, but
Except that, it's a goal.
it's a huge goal.
Yeah.
So I just wanted you to know
I
that
think
as you're
we should
doing
look
your
for after
public
that.
process, we're gonna clearly be doing a public process
Right.
too.
And so we, maybe in our public process, we highlight. the importance of
Well, and
goals
maybe,
and Activity, yeah.
and maybe in our public process, we learn some things that might help inform the wastewater
Mhm.
public process,
Absolutely.
comments
Yeah.
and, angst and
Yeah.
support.
And just recently, since I've been going to the library, evidently the neighborhood around the transfer station didn't realize that that was gonna be the site of wastewater treatment. So they just figured it out when we had started
Of course.
some promotions for town meetings, saying, this is where it's. So they're up in arms, so we have to do a whole process with them, which is not to say that they'll vote yes for it, but at least, we'll have done the outreach for them.
So I would recommend that our public process can happen before that, or,
Right,
but I don't think this meeting should happen until after
that town meeting.
that town meeting. And then, like you said, we don't have to have the select board meeting in the beginning of July.
Right.
We can have it
Mhm.
later in
Mhm.
August. But I think our next
Our
meeting
meeting is
shouldn't be
ended
until
June,
after this
whatever
special
that is.
town meeting.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because that would severely impact this.
We
Yeah,
can have
one
our
way or the
public
other.
One
comment,
way or the other.
we can have our public comment period.
We can
first.
have the public
Oh, yeah,
comment,
we're not
which you're
gonna
saying
come
can
back, yeah.
inform, which I think is great.
Right.
But in terms of what's the final that we're
Mhm.
gonna bring to select board,
Right.
this could impact it for sure.
I agree.
okay, so that would be no meeting right after the public comment period, but have after the special town meeting.
Yeah,
So we can
that's the
take
third
all
week in
of the
June.
comments we hear at
So
the
we-
special town meeting and all of the comments
So
we heard at our
We're
own.
Like the last week in June.
Yeah.
But we're not under the gun to meet with select board in the
Mhm.
first meeting in July.
Right.
Yeah,
We meet with them like the first meeting in August or something.
We'll figure that out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
yeah.
that's great.
Wow.
Easy for me to say.
That's
I mean, we
interesting.
were ready
Big
to go in terms of engineering and all that stuff. That's just moving along. It's the public process right now. And Richard worked out all the funding. It's just now he has to redo it, given.
I can't imagine getting that news. I mean,
It's a
the
good
first
thing-
part of the news.
Well,
you're gonna
it was such a
find print.
Because three times, we had 3 calls, and I wonder why they were calling me so much. They had 3 calls from the DEP SRF people saying, we're really sorry, you did get the points, you're on the plan, but we know that it's short time, like how can you assure us that you can get funding? And I specifically said to them, there will be 0 chance that I will get funding unless it's a multi-year program. And they're like, well, we can't do the multi-year program. So I had 3 conversations and our consultant had conversations. And so then we get the plan and we think it's like a typo. Like I was just absolutely shocked.
But how can anybody go forward with a project this big without having guaranteed funding through?
Well, that's what we said. We said that there will be no way to get approval. And then we have USDA, we have an application into the USDA too, but they're in the same boat as SRF. It's federal funding. They only get $30 million for the whole southeast region.
Assuming
And
they still get
we're
it.
like, could we have 30 million a year for the next 3 years? The math doesn't work. So, and they don't decide until fall. So we have different funding sources and different.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what we said.
And you worked
evidently-
so hard on all the funding.
Evidently, they listened, so they made that change and they slid it in, but they didn't think that we were gonna go for it, but I'm like, we don't have a change, we don't have a choice,
Mhm.
Yeah,
so
okay,
we'll go for it.
here we go.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
bad, but good. It's good and bad.
Jackie?
They're still smiling.
Roy has a question.
Sorry.
Jackie, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I believe you've kept IRPTA pretty much advised right along the line here. But will you be meeting with them to advise them the good news?
Yeah, I don't think they'll perceive it as good news, but yes,
I
I
know,
definitely
yes.
will. I definitely will.
I have neighbors.
Yes,
yes.
I'm not sure, I mean, strategically, I don't know when I will let them know. I'd like to have, for instance, I'd like to have a couple of weeks, but it's a public
Yes.
process and we just discussed it yesterday with capital projects, so. Because I do not want it to be something that takes over this town meeting. I'd like to get our annual business done and then focus on wastewater as opposed to, you know, but it should be a good, we'll do a presentation for the annual town meeting of some kind or have materials ready, so.
It's
Hey,
nice that
thank
we're
you.
in the auditorium, because you can do presentations much
Yeah,
easier than
much
outside.
easier than outside, yeah. It's true.
Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
circle back.
Hey, sorry, that was a huge digression, but it's
No,
me.
Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting.
It's
Yeah.
important.
Surprise, Paul.
I know. Yay.
We got a fighting chance. That's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fighting.
That's what we want.
Absolutely. All right, so we have somewhat of an agreement about how often we're gonna meet, how we're
Right.
gonna divide and conquer, how often we're going to meet with you. And then we're gonna have a person assigned to staff, quarterly updates, all those three.
Mhm.
And then comes back here so that we can put all the pieces together.
Mhm.
That, right?
I think it would be helpful at wherever we are in this meeting schedule to maybe have myself and the other department heads. So we can kind of roll this out, explain.
Mhm.
Oh, like a kickoff meeting?
Yeah, just kick
Yeah.
off me just so that way everyone's on the same page. It's not just like
And Jackie's
getting
there.
yeah,
Right.
you're getting
So-
people getting emails like, can I meet with you? And who are
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
What do you do? So we all just roll this
Yeah.
out and
And we should,
and then we can explain that the benefit of this.
Yeah.
You know, so
And Shana can add it to the projects too, so that
Yeah.
we're sort of checking in,
Mhm.
really doing that.
And so that would happen sometime after select board adopts, so maybe September.
yeah,
and we still need to determine who is handling which part of the, which ones of us are assigned to which parts of the plan.
But we can do that merging. To
Sure.
figure out if one of the
Mhm.
goals is moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we can also draft something that we could draft together.
And similarly, when we have that, whatever that communication looks like, a short summary memo of what we're talking about in the full template or whatever, we also need to update the committee heads, the relevant committee heads, because it's going to be on committee agendas also. So like the,
Well, and that was on here, but what we were saying is, yeah, we should make that list because some of us are represented
Right.
already there.
right, right, but I'm saying,
Anybody that's not.
yeah,
Anybody that's not.
any committee that's not
Big
represented.
from this group,
from
Yeah.
this group.
Doesn't look like it.
well, no one here is on climate.
No.
And
Yeah, so that would be Shana and Route 6, complete streets, municipal water and waterways.
That's Paul.
well, we don't have a committee for that,
Mhm.
but it's
Yeah.
it's staff. Me and John and
It's John, yeah.
um. I don't know, maybe is climate the only one, I guess.
I think climate's the only one, and I know they can handle it. Plus, if you meet Shana, then you.
Oh.
I love
So-
Shana.
Well, I'd like to keep up with climate since I'm talking to them anyway.
Sure.
So the other thing though, too, that we discussed is that. You know, when things need to, we gotta add some stuff on, so when that climate plan is done, when we update the hazard mitigation plan, the open space rec plan, when those sub-plans are done.
Right.
The idea was that. We have a meeting with reps from that, to say, okay, here are the top things from these plans we just finished that we think should be in there, and then that gets vetted and added in, so we'll have,
One on the OSRP.
that's right, yeah, so. That was another
Mhm.
work for the committee to do,
Yes,
and yeah, so we'll have. Yeah, definitely those three plans will be coming up for
Yeah.
completion during the next
She's
year.
done an amazing job.
what are the three plans? I can make a note.
Open space rec will be finished this year. We need to update the hazard mitigation plan. Assuming we get the funding. Which is not, which is a big assumption right now.
Right.
And what was the other one?
Climate.
Climate action, hazard mitigation, and OSRP.
So I
At
have
this
it in
point,
my-
those, yeah, we're gonna be updating those 3 plans in this coming year, so.
Right.
And those are all multi-year plans,
They're all 5-year plans.
so they would live a life.
Mhm.
And then before you know it, we'll be updating the housing plan again and a couple of other ones. So it's always gonna be this cycle, which is good. But I think this is why this format works better than waiting to do the strategic plan every 5 years. It's just,
Yeah.
I think this is gonna flow a lot better and just allow.
Yeah. So too.
When did, I mean, I wasn't on the committee when this whole thing started, so when you get to the end of. Like this, the 5 years, does the new plan start to get drafted in the last year?
Should,
Yes.
yes.
Seems like that makes sense.
Right.
That's
I
what
think
we-
it's gonna be more fluid, though. It's not gonna be,
New.
I
new
picture
items
it's
will
just
come
more
on,
like,
we'll
we're just
say it's for
updating.
2032.
Yeah.
Probably we're gonna be in
I just
20.
think the last plan was just.
You're here now.
chunk
I'm not here
time
now.
that Sat there,
No, I don't know.
you know, and we're trying to, this is gonna
Right.
be fluid.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
We learned a lot from the first one. Let's say that too. Yeah, can I ask a semi-related question? What about the long-range comprehensive plan? Does that need to be done as well? Because I know that's come up at various times.
Yes, it does.
What's the difference between the long-range comprehensive plan and the strategic plan?
Acceptance by the commission and the state.
Yeah, and town meeting formally and the scope. But I think it's gonna be easier for us to do it because of the way we've done this. I mean, if we were starting like blank slate, we had no plans, you would say, okay, let's do the townwide comprehensive plan, because that touches on,
I'd
Globe-
like to sneak it into the charge for this committee.
yeah, globally, that's what you do.
It had
touches
been in the
everything.
charge
Yeah.
originally. It seemed
Right.
to the. Right.
And then from that, you would say, okay, now we have all these things identified, let's do the open space plan, let's do the housing. And then out of that, all that, you would say, now, let's extract the strategic plan out of all that. I mean, that's kind of, but
So
and
the-
nothing ever lines up like that, so I think we have all the elements of it.
yeah, having the
So-
open space and rec plan, that's kind of the final piece, and then we can go back and look at.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna have all of these other plans that all are relatively, new and accurate. So when we go, so it's kind of like doing it backwards, but I think it'll be easier. But it's just honestly, it's just something that we haven't updated
Mhm.
the comp plan, and it's kind of like not even something that gets utilized or referred to at all.
I know if you read the last one, you can tell
Right.
that.
But in its place, we did
It's
this
one of
strategic.
those ones, like, you know, that sits on a shelf because
Yeah,
it's.
so we did the
massive.
strategic plan instead, which I think is more useful,
Mm.
you know,
Okay.
I think. So yes,
But every few years we have a discussion. Should we do it? Should we not?
since you brought that up, that updating the comp plan is not on the strategic plan
It's not.
as an action.
I noticed that too, but as it had been in our charge at one point, I thought I'd ask if that's
Yeah,
something
because it
that.
Snuck right in there. I did it, and then I think
I think
someone
it was it-
revolted. I don't know who it was.
It came out in your last revision of it,
Okay.
but I was wondering if that's something that this committee should be
I was gonna say, why would it
taking on.
do it? Like what, who would do it?
That's the only reason.
So first,
I think
Paul's
we-
gonna do it?
Well, no, I mean, it requires a lot of, it requires a committee and a lot,
and
but a lot of towns are updating their plan. I have been avoiding it just because I think we're putting our effort where it's more useful doing this strategic plan. And I think we're making more progress in more areas than a lot of other towns are, and so we're gonna stop everything to go do this whole comp plan thing.
So there's
Okay.
no requirement at the state level.
Or
It
does it,
used to be more important than it is. It used to unlock some,
Yeah,
Isn't there some money tied to
we
it?
should, at some point, we
it
should,
used to be.
we need to do this. It's just that
Yeah.
I just couldn't see our way clear to like stopping all the other stuff we're doing to go and do this whole thing. 'Cause-
Mhm.
So I guess until some point where it's clear, like, we need this because we're not gonna get funding or we're gonna
Yeah,
get,
like the.
bad things are gonna happen.
right,
That's kind of like. You know,
Makes sense. Okay. It's not on the list right now.
and I guess I'll just leave it to this committee. We can work that out and do course as to when we think that should be a priority.
You could give him that handbook you gave me on how to do it, which is when I decided
And we're doing-
we're gonna do it.
well, there's only a point in doing it if it's beneficial to us in some way.
Exactly.
And if,
So we
if there's
keep going
funding,
around
if
and
there's
so-
funding tied to it, like the OSRP, if you don't have it done, you
Right.
can't get state funding.
I don't think there's funding that we've missed because we haven't had.
Yeah.
That's important.
And this plan is not sufficient to fulfill the needs of that.
No, because it's a very specific process of certain people have to be on the committee, you have to have a certain public process, it goes through a regulatory thing.
Ah.
So it's, it's highly specific. But it covers all the same stuff that we've covered in all our individual plans.
So we can't like give our plan to Chat GPT and say, rewrite it as a.
I'll do that. Next time we discuss
That
it.
would be an interesting project.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Like the OSRP is like a rubric to it, you know.
Yeah.
yeah, and they just
Yeah.
came out with a new workbook. I sent you guys an email on a work session on that yesterday.
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
All right, let's come back.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
keep going.
Yes, have we covered your piece? I mean,
Yes.
are there things we missed, other things we should be discussing?
I just think
Alright.
now I'm looking, we need to put the calendar together and,
Absolutely.
because there's so
We
many.
need to assign
quarterlies
people and tasks and this and
Right,
that,
right.
so, we need to write that all down
And then,
we'll note,
do you
maybe
want-
we can.
You're gonna do, or,
I think between the two of us, maybe we can
Great.
put
Okay.
something, a draft out there and
Okay,
share it, with feedback and input and figure out what we missed.
and is there any public, like on the website, it talks about our charter, there isn't any of this, that, I didn't see any language that would need to necessarily be revised based on what we just discussed and decided.
no,
If someone wants the strategic plan, how do they get it on their website?
No, I mean, it'll be uploaded.
Yeah.
We're gonna upload the draft, we're gonna public comment, and then ultimately, yeah, it'll be.
I just
available.
meant on the charter of the committee, so.
Oh, no, I
any
don't think
new
we-
members or, okay.
No.
Now that we've decided what an active plan.
But we can make a nice landing page, centralized thing when this is done,
Great,
where the plan lives, and then if we wanna put these quarterly reports and everything, so someone could follow the thread of it all.
That would be good.
Mhm.
okay, perfect.
All right, so there's a bunch of next steps we need to do, define, including I'll send the document when they're all final, a couple of changes to the select board as a heads up. And we'll put together a calendar and also maybe just a rubric of the quarterly meetings and what they're to accomplish, just so we all. It's clear.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, Paul, you'll get that public meeting schedule.
Yeah, yeah. Please don't schedule on the same night as Concom, because I want to go.
I will, yes, I will,
Or
definitely not.
or couple.
No, well, that's the challenge. We gotta-
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon.
Well, it's easier to schedule around you two, because you only meet once a month.
All right.
And we're also going to have a public hearing in May on the dock regulations, so.
Oh, fun.
Okay,
Good meeting.
minutes
so. Minutes.
from the
Minutes.
prior meeting,
Oh,
I sent them
oh.
out.
They were
Okay.
good.
You
Mhm.
did, does anybody have any comments, edits, changes to the minutes?
No, I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
I,
All right, the minutes from the previous. Date.
March
March 12th.
March 12th, meeting of the East Hampton Planning Group. Anything else? Nope. If not, make a motion to adjourn. On favor?
Aye.
All right. The city planning meeting is adjourned.